Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Module 3 dashboard. Today, we are going to be talking about the outcome measure, which has a lot, as you'll see in a moment here. So one of the major limitations for the data we've been looking at so far is that iPEDS has historically collected that for the first time cohort, or what used to be the more traditional student in higher education. However, the traditional cohort is no longer the majority of students in higher education, and likely leaves out a large portion of the students who enter your campuses every year. For instance, at UNLV, the first time full-time cohort only makes up about 60% of our entering students every year. We also have a large number of students who come in as transfer students, and we have a segment of students who come in and enroll part-time in their first semester, obviously. So in 2015, iPEDS created the outcome measure to try and combat that problem a little bit. And then in 2017, they expanded that to split all the cohorts that you'll see in a moment here into those who received Pell Awards during their entry year and those who did not. We're only going to be displaying the data for the last 3 years when iPEDS started to collect the Pell split. So once again, let me share my screen with you. And as always, what you'll be looking at here is the data for UNLV. The outcome measure is reported the same for all 2-year and 4-year institutions. There's no distinction in the cohorts with this. So that's also one thing that's really different between the graduation rate survey. What this is when we report it each year, all institutions report their cohort that began 8 years ago, and it's every student who entered your institution 8 years ago, and then breaks that cohort into 4 types. Those students who entered as first-time students, those students who entered as not first-time students, mostly transfers, but there may be other students who entered with some college experience that you don't label as a transfer. And then it also further gives you those who were full-time or part-time in each of those cohorts. Finally, it then breaks all 4 of those cohorts into whether the student was a Pell recipient or not in their first semester, in their entry year. Because of how that gets reported, you can look at this data in any of those possible combinations. So you could look at just those students who were Pell eligible when they entered your institution, all of them. Or you can look at all your students, period, who came into your institution. Or you can say, I just want to look at my not first time, who came in as part-time students, but were not Pell eligible students. Once you select those that cohort of students that you're interested in looking at, there are a number of measures that get reported on the outcome survey. The first is whether those students in that cohort graduated in 4 years, so 100% of time at 4-year institutions, 6 years, or 8 years. Okay. Then we all have to report whether students in that cohort had transferred out and enrolled at another institution during the 8 years that we're reporting for, or whether any of those students are still enrolled at your institution 8 years later, or if the disposition of the students is entirely unknown, meaning that they have likely left higher education because we can't find them at another institution, they didn't graduate from anywhere, they aren't enrolled at our institution. And as always with this, you have your comparison institutions to look at what is happening with your cohort compared to your peers. So needless to say, there's a lot here with the outcome measure. You really can break down how students are entering your institution, whether they were low income as defined by the federal standard for Pell Grant recipients or not, whether they were full-time or part-time when they came in, and then what happened to all of them, whether they graduated from you, whether they left higher ed altogether, whether they're still enrolled at your institution, whether they transferred somewhere else. So there, you really get a feel of what's happening for all the students who enter your institution. It really is a powerful tool. Currently, they don't have us report gender or ethnicity on this measure. However, I will not be surprised if in the coming years they start to provide that split as well, and maybe phase out the graduation rate survey a little bit more. We'll see. Last thing with this, because we're only reporting with the Pell cohorts, so what began in 2017, there's only going to be 3 years of data out there, the 2009, 2010, and 2011 cohorts for all of you. I want to thank you all for the time you've taken in looking at the dashboards and what you've done in these modules. And I will actually be joining you in a little bit to talk about how UNLV has used some of this federally reported data and supplemented it with some of our institutional reported data to build some targeted programming for students. So I look forward to speaking to you all then and talking more about it. Thank you.